Hey there, my name's Lewis and you're listening to Kakou Talk, a podcast about community and accessibility brought to you by Kakou Technologies. You're listening to episode 8 with Karen Lawson. I just want to really quickly apologise before we get stuck into this episode of Kakou Talk, as during the recording and editing process I was faced with quite a few technical and audio hiccups. Now, what this will mean most noticeably to you, the audience, is that the overall general quality of our recording is much below the standards I like to typically keep on this show. It also means that this conversation may seem to come to quite an abrupt close, and that's because the last 10 minutes or so of Karen's audio I was unable to salvage. So I can only apologise for these technical issues and make a promise that I really do not want to repeat this and have this happen again in the future of Kakou Talk. However, despite these technical problems, me and Karen still have a really interesting and enlightening conversation, and I'm really excited to share it with you all. I hope you enjoy. Hello, and welcome back to what will be episode 8 of Kakou Talk. It's been a little while since I've done this. I've just realised it's been about a year, actually, and I'm very pleased to be back with an episode revolving around the Feeling Connected Project's Loneliness Awareness Week that we're doing in collaboration with them. And my guest today is Karen Lawson. Hello, Karen.
Hi. Thank you for the invite for today.
That's right, thank you for doing it.
No problem at all, no problem. How are you doing?
Good. No, I'm doing okay. Yeah, I'm doing all right. We're recording online. Our last few episodes have been recorded in person in the office, so this is the first online one I've done in a little while, and as you know, there's a kind of a bit of a technical stall at the beginning, but I figured it out. It's not too difficult.
That's okay. I think it always feels a bit weird doing things online, and I think that's quite relevant to the topic as well, isn't it? Going through COVID and everything, that a lot of work placements went on to online kind of working, and in turn has created a lot of loneliness and isolation, even in the workplace. So, different platform, but hopefully one day I get to meet you in physical person too.
Yeah, well, it's nice to meet you, even if it's online. But yeah, like you said, ever since 2020 and the pandemic, I feel like people who didn't know a thing about it, my grandparents wouldn't have known anything about video calls, and suddenly they're like more up on Zoom than I am, you know.
Yeah, absolutely agree with you. Same for my parents. They're not tech savvy, but they can use, FaceTime now and things like that. So it's made people shift the thinking. Some benefits, but I do feel there's a greater connection in a face-to-face kind of, meeting, etc. I think that's always good for human connection.
Yeah, I agree. I think during the isolation of the pandemic, I think a lot of people kind of embraced the whole online connectivity thing. But I think so much loneliness was born out of the fact that I haven't seen my neighbours in weeks. I haven't seen my family in months. It's that kind of level of you maybe don't necessarily even appreciate that until it's not available to you anymore.
Yeah, for me, on a personal level, quite an interesting story actually, which brings me probably to where I am today. So,
Sure. Would you like to tell us a little bit more about who you are and what you do?
Yeah, absolutely. So presently, I am a social prescribing link worker, and often people think, well, one, what is that? And two, they automatically assume that I can prescribe medicine. So I do work in a GP surgery. I work at Whittington Moor Surgery in Chesterfield. Absolutely love my surgery that I work in. I'm part of something called a PCN, which is Primary Care Network. So they are kind of the umbrella to numerous surgeries across Chesterfield and North East Derbyshire. So we're basically Chesterfield and Dromfield area. So there's 8 of us in the team, and for myself, I have probably the biggest uptake in social prescribing in my area. So we constantly have a huge waiting list for people to see, a very busy lady. So social prescribing is something that basically is the holistic kind of wraparound GP services. So, for example, if someone went to the surgery for a GP appointment, as you know, a lot of people do know, they only get about 10 minutes. So it's a very, very kind of definite time. And in fact, nowadays, I think you can only go and talk about one particular problem that you have. So say, for example, you had a verruca on your foot, then that 10 minutes is about the verruca on your foot. But you might want to talk about the rash that you've got on your back, you know what I mean? But that would be a separate appointment. So it's a very kind of specific time that they work to. So in those 10 minutes, it's very difficult for a GP to find out what's going on in someone's life. So often someone might go with anxiety or stress, or ask for sleeping tablets or something along those lines, and the GP simply hasn't got time to kind of peel back the onion layers and kind of work out what's going on with that person. So often they ask if they want to signpost. It's with the patient's consent that they would be signposted to myself. And what we do is pick up that patient and kind of get to know them. It's very, very, very person-centred, so each person is completely different to the next one that comes along, and work out kind of with them, and empower them really to perhaps take a little bit of control of their life, or find out, why they're not sleeping. What is it? Is it that they're lonely, isolated? Is it that they have family issues? Are they going through some particular stress or trauma? Are they seeking employment? Are they recently bereaved? Or they have addictions? So, and the list goes on. So our job is extremely varied. So 1 minute you can be handling someone that's, recently been bereaved, and it could be a horrific kind of trauma around that bereavement. Or you could be handling someone that is very, very lonely and isolated and not seen someone for 2 years at the door. So, like I say, each one is individual. And what we do is work with that patient for a considerable length of time. Again, that's person-centred. And we try and signpost them to things that will help them. So often those signposts mean that we connect with other health services. So it could be that they might need talking therapists for counselling, or they may need some help from Derbyshire Recovery Partnership for addiction, or we might simply signpost them to the voluntary sector, which is enormous, and it's a huge, huge kind of stepping stone for people in making a difference in their lives. So we might take them to a knit and natter group, for example. As daft as it sounds, you might have to stop me from talking too much, Lewis. But as daft as it...
No, it's interesting. Honestly, I was not, before we had this conversation, I wasn't aware that social prescribers even existed.
Yeah.
Is it like a relatively new thing?
But yes, in the scheme of things, it is. There was a big push for social prescribing, obviously, during COVID, and then now, I believe almost every GP surgery in the country should have a social prescriber. But like I say, we connect with different organisations, but and the voluntary sector, and we try and connect people with places that may help them on their journey. So like I say, you could go to Knit and Natter, but also, there's a great little, for example, bereavement group in Chesterfield that I've took people to. Or, Lewis, this is a big one. Some people really struggle just to get out of the house. Some people have, suffer so much with anxiety and stress and social isolation and social anxiety that's been brought around by not just COVID, but other incidents as well. But they struggle. So, they struggle to even kind of get up in the morning or peel back the curtains. We try our best to support around whatever the issue has probably led them to that kind of way of life, and work out better routes. But it is really about empowering the person. And myself, it's led me to lots of different journeys, my job now. So I actually run a few projects myself, and I've been involved with some great projects as well, collaborations with other people, which I've thoroughly enjoyed. But also it's kind of making that difference in the community. Community is so important. I really do believe that. And particularly, like around mental health. I could talk to you all day about mental health and the fact that, it's still very relevant that, particularly in our area, that suicide levels are quite high. Demographically, we're high in the country for, mental health and suicide.
Derbyshire.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. Derbyshire in particular is really high. We do have pockets of deprivation that obviously influence that, but we should never judge a book by its cover, because, well, I don't know whether you know, but a lot of suicides are really from the people that you find are smiling the most, the ones that you never know.
Yeah, of course.
And those are the kind of people that we try to pick up and help and support before they get to that point, obviously. So yeah, that's what kind of social prescribing in a suitcase is huge. How big do you want to go?
Yeah, of course.
And
well, I mean, like I said, to me, it's a field that is completely new to me. It's not something I was aware of. So this is all genuinely very interesting to me, and like you said, very relevant to the kind of loose theme of this conversation, which is reducing loneliness and addressing the kind of mental and social and even physical barriers that can stop people from interacting with their loved ones and their community and lead to a sense of isolation, especially, kind of from the pandemic, but just in general, just
absolutely
connecting people and the effect that it has when you see people who have lost that sense of community, have lost that togetherness, have lost that ability to, not be lonely, to be around people, to be social animals.
Yes, yeah.
And, like we said, this is going out during Loneliness Awareness Week,
Mm-hmm.
and we're going to be doing a lot with Feeling Connected, which is a charity that I know some of your patients may have benefited from.
Oh, yes.
The type of work that they do in loneliness reduction. I'm sure you've probably seen some patients who have benefited from that. Hugely.
So Feeling Connected in our area has been fantastic. I love the project. I love what Derbyshire Voluntary Action Group have done with this. I love the guys that work there. They have kind of developed and grown. It's helped with I can speak for myself, but obviously I know other colleagues that it's helped and supported. But they support people to get kind of groups off the ground. They're so much bigger than that, by the way. But generally, a lot of my patients have connected with some of those groups. Equally, some of my patients have developed groups that Feeling Connected have supported. And
oh, really?
Yes. So, they supported the Chesterfield Community Roast, which is something that I'm
of course,
very,
we'll get into that.
very passionate about myself, but I
Sure.
also help facilitate a pain support group, which actually was started off by a patient, and Feeling Connected helped with this. So there's a lot of people that suffer with chronic pain throughout the country. So chronic pain can be, generally it's used as a term that for anyone that's suffering with pain that lasts over 3 months. So that's kind of the loose effect of that, but loose, kind of terminology, I would say. Acute pain is something kind of that's very instant. So if we're crossing the road, got knocked over and you broke your leg, that's more of an acute pain, and hopefully it will go away. But chronic pain is something that we unfortunately have to learn to live with as well. And chronic pain can be something like fibromyalgia. It can be someone that's suffering with MS, back pain, all sorts.
I have a couple of friends in my life who have been recently diagnosed. Like you said, it was fibromyalgia, MS, and another friend with endometriosis. So just seeing, people my age, just how like chronic pain conditions like that are really affecting them. It's like, I guess it's something you never really. It's something that at least I had never really had lived experience of or seen my loved ones go through, and seeing it's yeah, it's difficult. It really is something that, like, I think people might not be super aware of. Even.
Absolutely. So I think we kind of just live with it and kind of, what can I say? It's there in society, but we probably don't pay too much attention to the ripple effects of chronic pain, because we just kind of get on with things, don't we, in life? Until, myself or other professionals that work in that kind of field, when we every day, you actually do pay attention to, the person that's walking down the street with a stick, or you kind of, you're already in their head and wondering what's going off with them. So I had a patient that had a long-term back condition, and it affected their life significantly, to the point that the job that they would had a very successful business, and this business that they had to give up. So it was a manual business. So that spiraled into loneliness, isolation, lots of ripple effects of finances, which I'm sure you can imagine can be anything up to someone losing the home that they live in, relationships breaking down, and then we spiral down and down and down, and then depression kicks in. And all the time you're dealing with all of that, you've got the chronic pain to live with as well. And chronic pain can be so debilitating that people do not want to get up in the morning. And when they live with that every single day, there comes a point in some people's lives that, I know this is very blunt, but they don't want to be here anymore. They kind of think, what the hell am I going to do? Who's going to pick me up? What can I do? What am I going to do with the rest of my life? So imagine having everything took off of you, which happens a lot with people with chronic pain, all your independence. That's huge. I have a patient that has MS who had a fantastic job, a great lifestyle, and then has had MS, and as that's progressed, unfortunately, is now living in a wheelchair with 4 carers a day, lives upstairs in a house that they paid for themselves, and has no real need to kind of go out or want to go out. So, for example, they actually come to this pain support, but this gentleman has kind of set up with myself with some help. So we kind of, so for the example with that, just how feeling connected help is kind of helping them along the way to say, actually, you know what, we're going to give you a little bit of finance to start that up, which was £75. Now, not a lot of money, but it got that up and off and, in the community, gets going, a group that happens once a fortnight. And for example, the client that's got MS now goes to that group, which took a huge, from my kind of social prescribing, but took a huge kind of effort to do. So that's just one of many. So that group started with 8 people, and just literally a couple of months down the line, they're now sat on 40 something. And this is without advertising, by the way. So for that particular group, they're not advertising yet, because the scale of chronic fatigue is huge, and they really do need some more, probably more significant backing to be able to support that amount of people, like IT issues and things like that, as you know yourself, being able to have a screen that can project to and things like that. So feeling connected has helped get that off the ground. So that's gone from, there's lots of little ripple effects with this. So that's gone from one person having a conversation with me to kind of getting it to 8 people sitting around a table and saying, yeah, this is what we want, to a group that happens with professionals, by the way. So they have collaborations of professionals coming in and doing speeches, lead pharmacists going, we have people in the holistic kind of profession that comes along and does talks, we even end up with a little meditation at the end, all sorts that happen in that group. So here you have this one particular guy that was really down, really kind of depressed, and at the point where he was ready to give up in life, as in kind of ready to throw in the towel and think, having those thoughts of not wanting to be here anymore, what's the point of life? So you have the two sides of the sword in the fact that it's given him kind of the empowerment, it's given him a will to want to do things again. So now he's growing a different business aside of the, pain support group. But also it's having the ripple effect of 40 other people that are now coming to the group that feel that they're connected, they're with people that understand. So you said lived experience earlier, I picked up on that, and that is so key. Lewis, if you have two people in a room that have got the same lived experience, oh my gosh, it's better than having half an hour chat with a clinician that has never lived that experience. And not pulling down what a clinician does. I
guess it's those shared experiences in which
yeah.
you do see communities develop. And,
yes.
I mean, I was interested in what you said earlier about the kind of the patient you were referencing is kind of like almost like a case study for the whole point of this conversation.
Yes.
The idea that like isolation and loneliness, be it like through mental struggles or physical impairment, with things such as chronic pain and MS and other conditions such as that, it is just such a snowball effect. I feel like over the course of this podcast, I've had a lot of conversations with people gone through experiences like that or worked with people going through experiences like that, such as yourself. And I think losing your support and financial and social and personal is just it just gets you so bad, doesn't it? It really is the thing from which all these other issues kind of expand.
Yeah, absolutely. So you take someone with MS or MND or something like that, they go, there's different levels of that, and there's different kind of, obviously, again, no two people they'll have similarities, but they'll be very person-centred to themselves, as in, the effect that ripples effect they have in their life. Some people might have MS and they have a husband and children at home that are there and supporting. Some may have MS that it's affected the life much that they've not only lost their job, they've lost the partnership, they've lost the children, they've lost all the friends because the friends have still physically been able to go out. So slowly those friendships disappear as well because they stop inviting the one that can't get there and as quick and as well as anybody else. And then eventually when that life becomes kind of in a wheelchair, unfortunately we are quite a selfish kind of race in the fact that we perhaps won't think that we're going to, I don't mean to say this in general, but somewhere in town that has not got those facilities that we can take our friend that's in a wheelchair for. Now you might think, oh no, well that's quite selfish of those to think that way, but unfortunately it's life, and it kind of develop a new life or a new understanding of my life is now in these four walls in a wheelchair and I can't even get upstairs anymore. How on earth am I going to get to the shop? Even that's difficult, Lewis. You get to in a motorised wheelchair. You try going through the cobbles of Chesterfield in a wheelchair. It's tough.
My grandmother. My grandma has quite severe arthritis, and she recently started using a crutch.
Yes, yeah.
And it's a very kind of arduous process for her. But she just in Chesterfield town centre, just a tiny little town centre in this country, she just can't use the wheelchair that she has there because it's just so frustrating and painful and inaccessible. To do that without a support net, which we had. She's part of quite a few little communities and stuff. She doesn't really feel loneliness to the extent that I think we're talking. A great many people.
Yes.
But I can't imagine just kind of going through that, and you don't have the husband with you to help you out. You don't have the friends who are willing to kind of make adjustments to your disabilities. I'm very fortunate that I can't imagine that, but I think it's in talking to people such as yourself and hearing about the good work done by you, the efforts to bring people together done by projects such as Feeling Connected, and of course the Chesterfield Community Roast, which we'll get into. I see that just how vital it is to be around people. I think while it's hard to blame people for kind of being selfish in the sense of, oh, okay, well, this person said they didn't want to impose, so I guess we'll just do this thing without them, and how that can spiral into losing touch with that friend and leading them down a very difficult path. I think very social animals, and I think we inherently want to see people together, we want to be together.
Yes, yeah.
And I think that's why project credits are important. My work, like what you do as a social prescriber, is important now more than ever.
Oh, absolutely, 100%, so important. And I'm not saying just, not my job, but everybody in the community. And, it's huge. And unfortunately, a lot of these people get left behind. And I always say to people, you are not your diagnosis. You are so much more than a diagnosis of MS or whatever it might be. There's a person behind those four wheels and that chair that you sit that goes down the street. There's a person behind that. And, we have people, I had an instance, I spoke to a patient recently actually who was in a supermarket with a carer, and they were in their wheelchair, and they literally do have carers with them 24/7, and I'll not name the supermarket, but they went to a supermarket and the cashier spoke to the carer and not the person, as in,
I see, yeah. That's a frustrating
yeah,
thing.
it was very frustrating.
Almost not seeing you as having your own agency just because you're disabled.
Yeah, and it really upset them, and it continued. It wasn't just kind of, that's £24.99, whereas you can't, it was kind of, looking at the carer to pay when the person's quite capable of paying themselves just because they're in a chair or have a disability. It doesn't mean to say that they cannot produce a bank card and tap it on on the Wi-Fi bit, what we use, whatever it's called, and it's even down to when they say thank you. Yet again, it's almost like thank you, and it's to the carer and not to the person in the chair. And what happened with that card is they handed it back to the carer, and it So it's it's things like that, those simple little things that we need to almost educate society with, and maybe there's some learning around that, and, around how big organisations, not on purpose, but how we treat others.
Of course. I think that's something that I see every day working with Kakou, the idea that, we do have such a ways to go in just changing the way people understand disabilities and access needs, the way the idea of seeing access needs and disabilities and conditions is it's something that people have, it's not something that,
absolutely, yeah.
You said it, I got it exactly right.
Yeah.
There is a person here, no matter kind of what immediate outdated kind of ideas you might have about the agency and personality of this person, that is still a human being. And I think understanding does need to change massively before anything else.
Absolutely. I mean, you can imagine being, I don't mean this in a rude way, but kind of being gagged, put in a chair and took to a supermarket to go buy your weekly groceries, and no matter how much you want to speak or engage with someone, they completely ignore you. And then so happening, what happens to the person in that chair, or whatever the situation might be. I'm just using this as a kind of a loose way of
course, yeah.
Because there's so many different disabilities out there that are hidden as well. So you imagine being ignored, imagine being kind of, almost frowned upon or looked upon as not being in existence. Underneath that person has emotions and feelings that are really valid and really important, and the ripple effect of society constantly almost battering them makes that person feel so unhappy, and then they just become isolated. So reducing isolation, getting social interaction, with being completely inclusive as much as we possibly can is so important. We should be able to give the person that's blind the same treatment as the person that can see perfectly well.
Of course,
what difference does it make? That is still a living, well-capable person, and there's some fantastic people there that that have got degrees, education, have set up their own business. I know a lady that's wrote a completely, you wouldn't even kind of probably put that context within this person. You'd kind of think, well, ex-professionals as well that have had a condition that's completely wiped them out, and unfortunately have to live a different life. And we seem to forget that they are capable of doing the same as you and I. And to be honest with you, because they carry so much passion, I think they're even more capable. Because they have that drive to do things, really do, yeah. So
we've it all comes back, doesn't it? It just all comes back to people, to making people feel like part of something, making them feel together, not removing anyone's agency, not taking away any freedom, like social or physical.
Yes.
It really is. It comes back to just how these things can isolate people.
Yes, yeah. Touching, go on, sorry, I'm interrupting.
No, no.
So, touching on that and exactly what you said, this is exactly why Feeling Connected is so important, because with their help and support, it's got lots of things going in the community. So I, funny enough, came across, again, I had a patient with autism, and who was very lonely and very isolated. And had a couple of other disabilities, but let's kind of just generalise that. And I introduced this particular patient, which took a long time, believe me, to a charity called McIntyre, which is a learning disability charity. It's,
I know.
Yeah, okay. So through that introduction, I met some wonderful people, and this is how the community roast developed.
Yes, I was going to say,
yeah.
We've been talking for, it doesn't feel like half an hour now.
No way.
And
sorry.
Yeah, 30 minutes. Just crossed it. No, don't be sorry. It's been an interesting conversation. But I was just saying, if you wanted to talk about the work that you do with the Chesterfield Community Roast, because it's a project that we at Kakou are very involved in, and the marketing of and the running of. And
yes.
if you wanted to talk a little bit about that, because I know it's something that's very dear to you.
Oh gosh, yes. So it really is. It's like a family now. It really is a little family. So I took a patient, like say, to McIntyre, and upon there, when you just click with someone. There's a lovely lady called Michelle, and Michelle Wilkinson. And we had a conversation, and we just clicked, and we were talking, it was, not long out of COVID, we were talking about loneliness and isolation. So, and the conversation just went from 10 minutes, pretty much like this one, to half an hour, and neither of us could get a word in edgeways because we were so enthused about things that we perhaps could do in the community. So we arranged a meeting, and it was in the little library at Swanwick Hall at Whittington, Old Whittington, and there was a few people in that meeting at the time from McIntyre, and a guy from Rethink called Mark Hudson, and myself, Michelle. And myself and Michelle were battering ideas around, and then we came up with a community. And it was a very kind of loose chat, let me put it that way. Do you know what was lovely about it? We were all very enthusiastic. You had two kind of people that were very driven, both Michelle and myself, in making this happen. And everybody got enthused probably. They had no choice. And, within a couple of weeks, the roast was kind of, let's do it. We're going to do it, right? We're on board, we're off, and we're away. And we literally opened the doors to the community once a month on a Sunday, the second Sunday of every month, at Swanwick Hall. Now, unfortunately, that kind of had a little bit of change of management, and we were no longer able to use that hall. So you can imagine we'd gone from a small conversation to be able to have originally probably 40, 50 people in a room that were made up. This was what was so lovely. We're made up of people that were blind, people that were disabled, people that had learning disabilities, ordinary people that were struggling with finance locally. So that kind of come together of community all ages, and I'm talking from 3 or 4 years old right up into their 80s and 90s, from all different aspects of life, you know, from care homes, people that lived and were isolated on their own, elderly people, so many conversations, and we had a theme every month, and we just rolled with it, and we got bigger and bigger and bigger. And then it came to Christmas, not this Christmas just gone, the Christmas before, and we recognised that a lot of these people that we kindly serve lunches up to, and it takes a lot to make those lunches, as I'm sure you will know. There's a collaboration of people that are involved with that we had to engage with and build relationships and trust, and you know, all sorts that goes off behind the scenes. But we got to a point, and it was kind of our October roast, and we were kind of, what are these guys going to do at Christmas? A lot of these people have got nowhere to go. So we decided that we would do Christmas Day, and it was absolutely...
The word Karen was going to say there before she was cut off because we could not salvage her recording was amazing. And that's because the Chesterfield Community Roast really is amazing. It does good work every single month to support struggling families, the elderly, children and disabled people, to have a safe place, to meet new people, to socialise, to stay warm and to have a wholesome, well-made, full dinner in a time where a lot of people could really use that. So if you're interested in volunteering for the Community Roast, supporting it, or even just attending, please make sure to check out the Chesterfield Community Roast Facebook page and stay tuned to the Kakou Tech UK social media platforms everywhere for information on upcoming events and Chesterfield Community Roast Sundays. So, despite the technical issues, I really hope you enjoyed this episode. From myself, Lewis, at Kakou Technologies, and from Karen Lawson, see you next time.